What is up, guys? I'm Glyphix, and today I basically just want to break down the drama that is happening on YouTube right now between none other than Ethan Klein of H3H3 Productions and Keemstar of Drama Alert. Okay, before we get started though, a couple disclosures. Firstly, I am a huge H3 fan, okay? But this video tends to be, it's trying to be more of a summary and a timeline of events. So, take that as you will. Second point, I am wearing the tie and suit jacket to try and appear more reliable. I'm too hot, don't trust it. Just letting you know. Okay, so firstly, I just want to go over, like I said, a timeline of events, of what has transpired, what has gone down. You probably don't have the time that I do or care enough to watch all the videos involved with this, but I have done. And I've honestly been glued to this whole thing, following all the Twitters of everyone, watching all the videos from secondary channels who weren't even involved to begin with, but have become involved. And yeah, I just want to break down what has happened. So, first of all, Ethan and Keemstar have had kind of a long-standing feud or rivalry or... It was nothing too strong before. Previously, it was just kind of Twitter beef. You know, it was poking fun at each other, clowning on each other, you know, some bickering and things in the replies, basic kind of stuff. But about a month ago, back in April 2020, Keemstar made a video about Ethan alleging fraud. He alleged that Ethan had fraudulently got money from Payday 2, which is a game where they released DLC for H3H3, where you could play as Ethan and Healer. Now, he says that money from the DLC was supposed to go towards a lawsuit that H3 had a while back. He says, you know, it was supposed to go towards that, but actually the pair ended up taking all the money from them for themselves. Okay, so this was a pretty heavy allegation, and this is what kind of kicked the rivalry, the beef up into a higher gear. A few days ago, so about a month later, H3H3 released a video, Content Nuke, on Keemstar. This was 45 minutes giving examples, evidence, and basically breaking down why Keemstar is a terrible person, a terrible news channel, and should not have a platform, pretty much. So his main points were that Keemstar doesn't respect, care, or, you know, even believe in mental health issues, and instead uses them as a way to get views. He gives some examples here of, firstly, of Etika, who really terribly, really sadly, actually killed himself. He was a relatively large YouTuber who ended up killing himself. You know, he went through several manic episodes and had a really tough time on the internet. And Keemstar, he shows some examples of Keemstar making fun of him, not believing in his mental state, saying, oh, it's all for the views, it's all for the views, he's faking it, and all that. He also gives an example where he did the same to FouseyTube. Now, FouseyTube last year went through a serious manic break, and it was evident to anyone watching that's what was happening, that he was not right in the head. But Keemstar went in on him. You know, he made several part documentary is a strong word because it was not quite so well researched as a documentary, but he did a several part piece on FouseyTube, and there's clips of him saying this is all fake, he's doing it for the views, and there's even his friends that are saying, look dude, he's going through a manic episode, maybe we should lay off, and he's like, no, it's all for the views, all for the views. Fousey, actually, there's a clip of him saying, what you said, Keemstar, made me want to kill myself. And it basically, the crux of the video is well, the first point of H3's video is showing Keemstar continually showing a lack of respect, a lack of belief, and just using and making fun of those with mental illnesses who are, you know, going through some tough times, and berating and harassing them and doxing them and all this kind of stuff. The second point he makes is around the Golden Glory channel. The Golden Glory channel is an old guy who streams RuneScape. He's like 65 years old. He's bald. He's got a grey beard. He wears a crown on his head. He's extremely lighthearted, nice guy, very sweet kind of old man. And at one point, Keemstar on Drama Alert claimed that this man was a pedophile, based purely on the fact that he looked somewhat similar to a pedophile shown in a news article. This was completely just, that was the extent of the evidence. It was completely not based in fact, reality, and it led to Golden Glory getting tons of hate online and death threats against his family and just all kinds of awful stuff that this guy really, really did not deserve. Finally, he gives some examples where Keemstar has doxed people. Doxing is where you release someone's personal information online, addresses, emails, phone numbers, that kind of thing. It is definitely illegal, it's immoral, and although Keemstar doesn't directly say, hey, swat this guy, he gives out the info and says, hey, if he were to be swatted, that'd be kind of funny. You know, he kind of baits his audience and uses them as a weapon against people to harass them. Okay, Keem then followed this up a day later with a video defending himself. And I'm a little hesitant to say that because the majority of the video was basically Keemstar showing, hey, look, H3H3 is a horrible person as well. It was not so much, hey, look, this is what I've done right. I didn't do these things. I'm a decent person. Here's my defense. It was, he's terrible. Look, he's terrible. If I'm terrible, he's as terrible as I am. Okay? He gives an example where H3H3 made fun of FouseyTube as well on the podcast. And on top of this as well, he also says he walked away from his sponsorship with G Fuel. I forgot to talk about this, but in Ethan's original video, he talked at length about Keemstar's sponsorship deal with G Fuel. Now, there's been a bit of controversy around this. Keemstar basically says, hey, you know, because of what you said about my G Fuel sponsorship, I had to walk away from that deal. I got to say, like, I don't buy that for a second. He got dropped. He got dropped by G Fuel, you know. He didn't walk away from it. He got dropped by it. That's just, you know, terrible. That's just a lie. Okay, so the day after the initial Keemstar response, H3 made another video breaking down the response and just doubling down on some of the claims and allegations that he made. One of which he did say, you know, if you look at another clip from the same podcast about FouseyTube, you'll see how I actually hope that he has a good support system around him and say that he needs help, he needs professional help, and, you know, I wish him all the best and hope that he has good people around him to help him through, you know, this episode that he's having. He shows a level of respect, in other words, for a mental illness, for, you know, a guy who's clearly going through something, you know, whatever that may be. So in the meantime, whilst this kind of back and forth was going on, several other quite large YouTubers made videos about Keemstar and about, you know, harassment they've received, other bad stuff that Keem has done. So one of them was Yo Mama. So the Yo Mama channel, it's so ridiculous that they're breaking this kind of serious news, but they basically do comedy videos, they do animated shorts that are typically very adult in nature, just making fun of people and you know, comedy type stuff. But in this video, he literally sits down and says, I was going to make jokes. I was going to come on here and pretend to be Jesus and, you know, get all silly with it. But the further I dug, the more serious what I have to talk about got, and it just doesn't seem right to make jokes about it anymore. And for your mama to say that, like, it's not good. It's not good. So he basically outlines some links that Keemstar seems to have with alt-right movements, with very racist people. Specifically, he talks about the Killstream podcast, which Keemstar has said multiple times that he's a huge fan of. He's been on the show many times, and this podcast basically gives a platform to those with extreme views, which, by the way, I'm not against in principle. You know, everybody should have a voice and all that. But the thing is, the way that the podcast approaches it, it's less of a discussion. It's more of, hey, here's a platform to talk about your extreme views so people can see your extreme views. It's giving a place for those who don't just have extreme views, but are so extreme they're detached from reality. They're clearly racists. There's some neo-Nazis and things that go on there. And Keemstar has shown time and time again that he respects, likes, and has a love for that podcast. Your Mama basically says, him lending his weight to it is giving clout, maybe indirectly, but is giving clout to those who have these terrible, awful, despicable views that the majority of us don't agree with. And there's also a question raised about, is Keemstar also a racist? Does he also hold some of these beliefs? It certainly seems that he somewhat sympathizes with them, at least. Now, Yo Mama is a fairly big channel, about 5 mil subs, but an even bigger one came out to talk about harassment he got from Keemstar, and that was Deji. He's just about 10 mil subs. It's kind of a meme now that he's not hitting 10 mil subs, but 9.95 or something like that. And he talks about Keemstar's allegations that he sub-botted. In other words, bought subs for his channel. The evidence that Keemstar gives when he made these allegations came from a guy who runs a website for buying subs. That's the only source he has. I'll say it was some compelling stuff. I will give him that. It wasn't all completely unfounded. It was certainly compelling. I do think that the owner of this subbot website, obviously has an agenda that he wants to get his name out there. Like, hey, this is the site. This is the name of the website where Deji bought subs. You can buy subs here too. But overall, the evidence was reasonably good for drama alert for Keemstar. But Deji basically goes on to say, he's just been endlessly harassed and has had all these allegations against him, which he says are just completely untrue. And then finally, there was a channel called Mr. BTFO, who was originally named Britbong Returns. He had to change his whole online persona name to Mr. BTFO because of the harassment he got from Keemstar. There is clips of Keemstar, which Mr. BTFO shows, where he's just sat there on stream listing off social medias that he's gonna get taken down of Britbong Returns. Your Twitter, your YouTube, your Reddit, whatever you try and do online, I'm going to be there and I'm going to get it taken down. I own you. I'm more powerful than you. I can use my influence to delete you from the internet. It is really, really nasty stuff. It is very, very damning. I mean, you can't honestly watch it and say, you know what? Yeah, he's fair. He had a reason to be saying that kind of thing. Like that is never okay. So a day after that, Keemstar released a second defense video. A large portion of it was dragging Ethan and trying to, paint him in a bad picture. Okay, fine. Again, that kind of stuff flies with petty internet beef, but the kind of things being thrown around here are pretty serious, and it kind of feels like he should take it more seriously. He basically says Ethan is just mad. He's just mad. He's just giving all this lies and bullshit because he's just mad. But one of the things he does defend is his handling of the Golden Glory mistake. After he wrongly accused that guy of being a pedophile, he immediately took down the video, made a follow-up saying, look, we're sorry, we got it wrong, my bad. And he tried to make amends as best as he could with Golden Glory. He played RuneScape with him, he offered him cash, he offered him tickets to RuneCon. He tried his best to make amends, so fair play there. He does also kind of spin it a little bit to make Golden Glory out to be something of a bad person too, which, again, it feels like Keemstar cannot defend himself without trying to target somebody else and to, shift focus pretty much. And finally, he goes on to claim that he never actually doxed anyone himself, which again, technically is true, but he used his clout, he used his audience to get people doxed by revealing their information online. Okay, that basically wraps up the summary. Now, the two channels do have similar follower counts, around the 5.5, 6.5 million mark. But look at the dislike ratio on Keemstar's videos versus the like to dislike ratio on H3's videos. It's safe to say I'm not the only one who's biased towards H3H3 here, or rather biased against Keemstar. Now, basically what this whole thing amounts to is H3H3 says Keemstar doesn't respect mental health. Keemstar harasses people online. Keemstar uses his platform, his audience, to harass people. And Keemstar is terrible at reporting the news, despite claiming he prides himself on getting the story right and researching and all of that. Keemstar's defense amounts to H3H3 is also a bad person. I tried to make amends with Golden Glory, and that's basically it, you know. And also, I never personally doxed anyone. Now, I don't really know what is gonna come out from this. I mean, ultimately, I don't believe that Ethan actually, you know, wants the only outcome I believe he wants is everybody just know Keemstar is a terrible person and you should not trust what he says, which at the end of the day is pretty damning for a news channel. Now, we got to see where this goes, and maybe I'll make an update video if more stuff comes out, which, to be honest, I believe it will. But what Keemstar honestly needs to do is just sit down, take it seriously, and just genuinely take a look at himself and say, okay, what parts of what Ethan says are true, what parts are genuinely untrue, and then address those in a serious manner and in properly introspective, you know, look at his own personality and try and change some things, because it's evident that it's not all good, you know? And hey, maybe Ethan can also do that. He's certainly, you know, not innocent in all ways, you know. He's had all kinds of bad stuff in the past. And this is a very subjective thing, but it seems to me that Ethan's heart is in the right place, if you know what I mean. He comes from a place that is at its core good, whereas Keemstar seems to come from a place that is at its core angry, unpleasant, and just generally wanting to dominate, overpower, and use his clout against people. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I do respond to every single comment I receive. Please subscribe, and I will see you next time. Take care. Man, Jesus. Subscribe.